So we're the Y Combinator of the charity world, getting there at least. And I want to talk really briefly about what makes a fantastic new organization. Now, for really established organizations, you have charity evaluators like GiveWell doing fantastic work, finding them. They're kind of the equivalent of IPO'd companies. You know, they've been evaluated, they've been put on the market, they're kind of huge and really promising and a really safe investment. The charities we're going to hear from and look at are more in the VC stage. They need people with risk appetite. They need people who are looking for kind of high upside when it comes to impact, but also some chance of the charity not working out. But not all bets are equal in venture capital or in the charity world as well. There's things that make up promising opportunities, promising charities that could have a potential to have massive impact later on. And I want to talk about three of those elements that I think are crucial for any charity, and there are the three main components that we look at when incubating or helping charities going through our program. The first one, and probably the most important one, is co-founders. You need people who are fantastically talented, dedicated, and interested in making the most difference. And the most difference is actually really key. Making a difference is great, but making the most difference is actually very substantial and diverges a lot when it comes to what path your charity goes down. So typically you find two-person co-founder teams are really fantastic. They can build off each other and support. And typically they bring different diversified skill sets to the table. You know, maybe one's a doctor, maybe one's a consultant, maybe they bring together a useful skill set package that makes the charity greater than some of its parts. And like when you're looking at early stage organizations in the for-profit world, a lot of the time when you're looking at early stage organizations in the nonprofit world, it's the co-founders that you have to trust. It's thinking that they will make good decisions as the many troubles and difficulties and tribulations come their way. Now, our co-founder selection process is pretty intense, to say the least. We get 5,000 applications, we let in 15. Makes us more competitive than most programs on the planet. And the application process has 7 to 10 stages, depending on whether you count reference checks and this sort of thing, including multi-hour test tasks and many different interviews. It's intense. After that, that's really just the beginning. People then spend 2 months together in a program, mixing, mingling, working with each other, seeing what their co-founder fit is with other people who went through an equally rigorous process. Very, very intense, but with pressure comes diamonds, at least if you start with coal or something like that. And I think a lot of the charities that come out of our program have fantastic teams that are super well equipped to found a really good organization. But of course, a co-founder team isn't all you need. You need a really good idea. Now, I think the standard kind of motif in the charity world is to start an idea because you are personally affected by it or because you're super passionate about it for some reason. Now, that's really exciting for some reasons. You can kind of get a lot of energy and enthusiasm behind it, and that is crucial for a charity to have success. But it doesn't necessarily lead you to the very best charitable organizations. In fact, sometimes the best thing might be a problem you've never thought about or heard about. So we do things a little bit differently. We have our research team investigate thousands of ideas that are narrowed down through successive layers of more and more time, more and more hours going into fewer ideas until eventually we get to a golden few. Kind of like our co-founder process. Start with a massive list, end up with a few that are exceedingly promising. And we're looking for ideas that can be cost-effective, ideas that can be evidence-based, ideas that could become top-rated by a charity evaluator after enough time for them to kind of like ripen and for the co-founders to prove their mettle. These ideas have the potential to be some of the most effective charities in the world, and often they're not ideas that the co-founders knew a ton about coming into. They knew the broad area, maybe they were excited about global health or excited about animals, and then they learned about these particular niches as they were testing them out with their co-founders to find a particularly good match. Often our co-founders do find some way that they're attached to the idea, that something's affected them or something's connected to something that they care about. But fundamentally what they're looking for is an idea that has the huge potential to have a big impact. So that's ingredient number 2. Now, ingredient number 3 can be really hard to tell, especially right at launch, which is execution. You can have a great idea, you can have a great co-founder team, but you actually need to execute. You actually need to be able to do the work to make the difference that you're saying you can. The charities that we're hearing from today have typically had some time. So you can actually look at what they've accomplished, what they've executed, what they've worked on, how they've piloted, how things have progressed over time. And I think that's a crucial ingredient to get a charity's long-term success. You can't tell a multi-year track record from an organization that's only been running 6 to 12 months. But you can look at what goals they've set, what directions they're moving, and what they've accomplished in the time that they've been in existence. So those 3 ingredients we look for every great charity, and those were kind of what I would recommend you to look for when you're thinking about great charities today. What are the co-founders like? How good is the idea? And how good is the execution? If you have those 3 things, even if they're young, even if they're unproven, even if they still need to hit scale, there's a lot of impact that they can have. And I think arguably, often you can have more impact as a donor looking at the smaller scale opportunities than the big ones. The last thing I want to talk about really briefly is this idea of a philanthropic ecosystem. What are we missing in the world? Where can an individual donor make a really big difference? And I think that donating to GiveWell and these big opportunities is a fantastic way, almost guaranteed way, to make a huge difference in the world and make a big impact. But I also think that if you're a donor and you have a bit of interest, a bit of risk appetite, a bit of comfortability with entrepreneurial opportunities, looking at this kind of mid-stage, the charities that have run for a few months or a year have started to establish, have started to show that they can execute, but have not yet proven themselves to the point where they can be evaluated by charity. I think this can be a really unique opportunity for an ecosystem like this to contribute, make a huge difference in the world. So I think mid-stage funding is one of the biggest gaps in terms of really powerful charities becoming eventually top recommended. And I think that's something that we all have an opportunity to contribute to today. Thank you.